So even if we've all had a ton of fun dunking on Howard Schultz recently, somehow Michael Bloomberg has escaped criticism. And he's escaped criticism in part because he actually instructed Howard Schultz publicly to not run as a centrist independent and to instead run within the Democratic Party. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, thank you, Michael Bloomberg, for talking some sense into him and, not doing something that could harm the Democratic Party's chances of defeating Donald Trump in 2020, whomever the nominee may be. Thank you, Michael. But what people forget is that in 2016, Michael Bloomberg was basically floating what Howard Schultz is floating now. He was considering jumping in the race in the event Hillary Clinton lost. In the event Bernie won and we saw a Bernie versus Trump matchup in 2016, Michael Bloomberg was actually threatening to spoil the election then. And he actually was irritated that Hillary Clinton was even doing anything to reach out to progressives. He said that she was moving too far to the left to appease Bernie Sanders. So before we shit on Howard Schultz too much, I need us to not forget about how Michael Bloomberg is the original individual who made this a possibility. He maybe gave Howard Schultz the idea that running as an independent, as a centrist independent to tank the election is a good idea. He's the one that came up with this. Now, back in 2016, I believe it was January 31st, I did a segment on this, and I was incredibly pissed off. And this was one of my first rants. Back then, I was very soft-spoken because I was still a little bit nervous and unsure of myself, and now I just don't give a shit. But this was one of my first, really big rants on the show, and I watched it again, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I think that what I said then is still true now. It's just applicable to Howard Schultz instead. So we'll give you this flashback, just a fun old clip of me ranting about Michael Bloomberg being a greedy prick. And keep in mind that what I said then, it's basically true now for Howard Schultz, and we should all dunk on Michael Bloomberg as well.
So what you want is someone in office who's mainstream, i.e. establishment, who's actually going to fight for your interests, who's going to continue to give tax breaks to billionaires and fight for you, and not the little guy, right? So the fact that Bernie Sanders is actually doing great, that actually really scares you. So you want someone in there who's going to perpetuate the status quo where our American oligarchy can control everything and can control Congress, right? Oh, okay, so this is a clear case of, if I don't get my way, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum and run as a third party and ruin it for everyone. Well, unfortunately for you, you might not actually be able to spoil this election after all. So in a three-way hypothetical matchup against yourself, Bernie Sanders, and Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders beats both of you. That's right. The individual who is fighting for the peasants and plebeians beats two billionaires. That has got to be a blow to your ego. I mean, if you're a billionaire, you got to have an ego. But damn. You need to ice that burn, Mike. Now, I just have a question for you. Your net worth is $41 billion. You are the 7th richest person in the country, the 13th richest person in the world. You basically will never be able to spend all that money, even if you live to be 1,000 years old. And even in spite of this fact, you still want more money. You want an establishment candidate who's going to continue to give you more tax breaks. When do you stop? I mean, you have $41 billion. At what point do you just throw your hands up and say, you know what? I'm good at 41 billion. I mean, do you want to get to 100 billion? Do you want to get to 1 trillion? When does the greed stop? You're never, ever going to be able to spend all of that money in your lifetime. Doesn't matter how long you live. Even if you had 1 billion, how are you going to spend all that money? I mean, that is an amount of money that is unfathomable to us. We can't even picture it in our heads because it's such a huge quantity of money. It's seemingly infinite to a lot of us who are basically living off of scraps. So my question is, when is enough for you? When are you going to check out and say, look, I'm 73 years old. I think I'm good with what I got. When do you do that, Michael? I don't give a shit about your philanthropic endeavors. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how many charities you've donated to. The fact is that you're sitting on $41 billion. There are diseases that need to be cured, okay? There are people starving. You can feed countries in Africa with that type of money. And yet you want more for yourself. You want to hoard more money. Not only does that make you someone who is ignorant of the world, it just makes you a bad person. Yes, having that much money, an unfathomable amount, makes you a bad person, Michael Bloomberg, because you are sitting on money that could be saving lives. But you are so goddamn greedy that we can't even have the candidate that we want for president, right? So if we pick Bernie Sanders, you are threatening to steal the election from us. When does it end? That's all I'm saying. I want to know, when is enough enough?
Girly Mike Fettuccine needs your support on Patreon. What a loser. Visit patreon.com/Humanist Report to support the low ratings Humanist Report. Sad. My views are much higher.